I think let's get on with the show. The good news is that we're recording this as we have the last session as well. So those people that missed anything in the beginning will be able to pick up on the recording, which we'll share on our various platforms. So check out the I Love Ballito platform, and we'll be sharing the recording there. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm really excited about this particular session, highly topical, something that is basically on the lips of pretty much most businesses, local, small businesses, and even big business. It's been in the news a lot, e-commerce, and what the impact of this whole pandemic has had on this particular sector. I'm really excited about the panel that we've managed to put together today. Definitely, it's got a really nice mix of different types of sort of businesses and experiences. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to start and I want to introduce first the ladies from Weare Food. So we've got Amy Weare, she's on the left, and we've got Jane Bisset on the right. Hello, guys.
Hi.
So I'm going to give a quick intro to each person just so we can kind of get through that, so you can get a context of who's who. And forgive me if I read a little bit here, but I'm just want to make sure that I get it right. But guys, Jane essentially started this with her mom, Dadi, back in 2013. And they started basically doing home-cooked meals for friends and family. Fast forward a number of months, and it just took off. And they sort of went from 45 odd regular clients, and it just sort of exploded. And the guys moved into physical premises, a larger kitchen. Since then, the guys have grown phenomenally. In about 2016, Amy came back from a stint in Australia, she said, and basically took over the sales, administration, logistics, etc. And as a partner, and there's obviously, well, there we go.
Hello, Gary.
Hello, Gary.
Son-in-law.
Gary is supporting the family.
Hi.
Okay, good. Welcome, Gary. That's how you make an entrance. Oh, there's Dadi. Speak of the devil. Okay, so.
Oh no.
I see Dadi is out collecting provisions for the business, while you guys are sitting and chatting. All right, so yeah, and now the guys have expanded. They're still in the same premises in Durban North, but I mean, if it hasn't grown since then, the last bit of information I have is that they're producing over 1,000 meals a day, and that's a considerable effort. So welcome, guys. We look forward to hearing about your journey.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right. Then next up, we've got Kelly Bottcher. Kelly is the founder of Ellis Soul. It's a proudly local women's clothing brand. It began in 2016. Kelly is a surfer. She spent a number of years on the yachts, cooking, and probably traveling around to many exotic locations. She's obviously a beach girl at heart, and it probably reflects in the style and the kind of range of clothing that she produces. I think from what I've read and what have we chatted about, her journey was inspired by her love of fabrics. She has a background in sort of interior design as well, so that kind of really inspired it. And probably the coastal lifestyle and everything and color is another trend which I'm sure we'll be talking about. So welcome, Kelly. It's great to have you on board with us too.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
And there is a story behind the name Ellis Soul, obviously inspired by your daughter. So, that's the interesting thing about businesses. It starts normally with heart and something that we're really passionate about, and just amazing to see where it's grown from there. So yeah, we look forward to catching up with you. And then last of the guest panel, but certainly not least, is our resident digital e-commerce expert, Kirsty Bisset. Kirsty has got, I have to read some of the stuff because it's a CV. I was on LinkedIn and it's just considerable. But I know Kirsty, we've judged together on a local entrepreneurial competition some time back. So I've got a real sense of what she's about. She's really dynamic. She's the founder and CEO of Stir and SwiftX. She was named as one of the Fast Company's top 20 South Africans under 30 in 2016. She was featured in Destiny Magazine's Power of 40 in 2016, and she was also a finalist in the Fair Lady Woman of the Future in 2018. So we're dealing with a real powerhouse go-getter. And from a business perspective, Stir, it's a digital agency. It focuses on social media, web development, e-commerce in particular, and email marketing. So she really brings a wealth of experience when it comes to that. She's actually also been a e-commerce business owner herself, so has got practical experience too. And then SwiftX is a marketing and growth agency, and it's focused on the fintech industry, things like blockchain, these concepts and words that people hear about. But we're probably not going to speak maybe too much of that today, but we'll see how that maybe relates to the e-commerce space. So guys, our guest panel, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, and I don't want to...
Who am I?
I'm getting to... I said my guest panel, yeah. So to get to our partner in crime over there, that's Justin Scott. He's the CEO of Fab Mags. We've been set out on this journey together, which has been fantastic to start these conversations and to support local business and to share, practical tips and information and sort of connect people. Just is obviously in publishing, but he's also very much a geek, and he is very techie, and he has got business interests, digital business interests both here and various software interests globally as well. Works a lot in the States. Sometimes when I try and get a hold of him, it's very difficult because he's working like 24 hours a day across various timelines. But Just has got a wealth of experience in this space too. So Just, it's in your wheelhouse.
Thank you.
Excited?
So excited.
Good.
And I think what we need to do, panel, is let's not forget Tim. Tim Johnson, principal of SEAF, North Coast, and he told us doesn't sell homes, he come true. And that's, so we love having him as our host, and thanks Tim, I'm keen.
Cool, Just, so the e-commerce space, guys, it's as we said earlier, it's very, very topical, and I want to get straight into it. I wanted to start with a fairly broad question, and I want to aim this at Kirsty, because I think that e-commerce is something that's always been, it's been growing, and it's been an interesting space over the past period of time. But this whole global crisis, this pandemic, has really kind of thrown the cat amongst the pigeons. And so the first question that I want to ask, and it comes off the back of an announcement, which you could maybe talk to us a bit more, literally 2 days ago, where Facebook announced that they were getting into this e-commerce space in a real way by launching a product called Shops through their various platforms. In your opinion, has the e-commerce sector been disrupted, like in any significant way during this time, or is it just a natural gravitation of what was happening before?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, there's obviously would be a natural transition into online, given that people literally can't leave their houses. So there's a Nielsen study that was released, and we're still waiting for all of the accurate stats and figures. But it said that 29% of South Africans have claimed to be shopping more online. And then globally, there was a 209% increase in online shopping from April this year compared to last year. But I don't think that's any kind of surprise. I think one positive that would come out of this is that people are more aware that e-commerce exists. With Facebook's announcement yesterday, and I'm just going to go straight into my kind of opinion here, it was an interesting one. I never know if Facebook is doing something to help or to make a profit. And based on experience, I'm very wary of this. I'm always mindful of when Facebook jumps onto trends and ideas, because they always do it quite half-heartedly. So if you think about how they jumped onto stories after Snapchat's success, if you think about how they're trying to monetize Creator Studio after seeing what YouTube has done, if you've seen what they've done with filters and frames and that based on TikTok and platforms like Canva's success, they do jump onto these trends and ideas in an effort to help. But I've never felt like they've put their whole heart into it. So while I'm not saying don't get onto Facebook Shops, it's great, every touch point counts, I would recommend not relying on it solely. you still need a website.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll obviously have to watch this space as they launch and more information comes out on these platforms. But yeah, I tend to agree. Potentially more following than leading, from them. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, in terms of the rest of the panel, I've got a question here that I want to direct at the ladies from Weare Food. So, guys, I mean, during this time, how have you had to adjust or evolve your offering, during this time? Because obviously, you've had a particular way of doing things, and during this time, you've had to maybe evolve somewhat. What are some of those challenges and ways that you've had to adjust?
Okay, so in terms of our offering, as in our menu, we found actually towards the end of last year, we had about 120 lines, which we were producing and bringing in as secondary products. So we had a massive menu. We found early this year, we already cut our range to about 80 or so. And we already saw a lot more efficiencies in the kitchen. So obviously when it was with the president's first announcement that the lockdown was coming, and we had to cut our range right down because we just could not keep up with demand. So we're now down to, I think, 40 to 50 lines. And suddenly we've got a super efficient business. So it's been... It's been quite remarkable, I mean, I think it just shows our character. We like the fluff and the colorful stuff and all the pretty things, and our accountants for years have been asking us to cut our range. So we finally have had to, and yeah, it's starting to make sense in terms of a business model. But I think the big question also leads to, the heart of it. And we've always stood that, even though big corporates have said to us, cut your range down to 3 or 4 meals that you do well and have good margins. Well, that will never be able to stock a store. That won't make a fabulous website. So where's the balance? And I think that's where we're starting to say, okay, maybe it's somewhere in the middle. There is a nice balance between the right profit margins, but also having a really awesome product offering that's going to keep customers coming back.
And I think what the last 8 weeks has done for us is it's really pushed us forward under this pressurized sort of environment to make quick fire decisions to survive and to cope. And we've actually thrived under the circumstances. So we've streamlined our menu more. We've enhanced our website. So we're doing more deliveries more readily. But you still realize that there is a place for your bricks and mortar stores. So even more so, the omni-channel is vital. As much as there's a lot more online customers, we've had enormous uptake in older people now purchasing online. People still want to go into stores, and that isn't going away. So again, it's about finding that balance, which I think we're working out more and more.
Cool. And I want to touch on that. Is there someone else? Okay. I want to touch on that just now, because obviously that's going to be a very important point, this whole balance between physical versus the digital environment. So let's hold that thought, and I'm sure everyone's got some ideas on it. I want to just quickly get across to Kelly. Kelly, when did when you looked at this business model that you were trying to put together? So I want to kind of go back a step. You realized you had this passion, you wanted to produce this range, this new product. When did the whole digital e-commerce online aspect of it come into play? And how did it come into your decision making about how you're going to get your product to market?
Well, I think for me, I started, there were people sort of in Joburg, Cape Town, that were following me on Instagram and asking where can they purchase my garments. So obviously one of the reasons was to be able to make it accessible for people to purchase. And then a big thing for me was having children and just having the flexibility. And another thing was obviously being on a budget. So I think those, those are probably the 3 big things for me.
Was it? I mean, you mentioned social media, so obviously this is something that it's probably the easiest zero sort of cost really to sort of get involved. That's most platforms will start there. But when was that point that you sort of looked at it and said, "Hang on, I have to do more than this"? Was it customer feedback? Did you look at how you could scale your business? So when did the idea of actually maybe incorporating some sort of a e-commerce element into your business come about in your journey?
Yeah, I think for me it was having to rely on stores to sell your product was a big thing for me. I also wanted to get to know my customers, what they wanted, what sizes work, what doesn't work, what do people want. And I found that people were so interested they wanted to buy from me because they wanted to hear what my story was. And you can share that through social media on Instagram. You know, people they don't just want to see beautiful garments. They want to know where the product's coming from. They want to support local small businesses and their stories. So yeah, for me, it was just another way to make sales, really, and to get to know the customer.
So similar question, and I just want to, I want to kind of explore this a bit further with Kirsty, but just quickly going back to Amy and Jane, similar sort of question. You guys started obviously making meals, and it was a much sort of, I suppose, more organic type of thing, probably taking orders, just delivering. It wasn't necessarily an online business. So same thing with you guys. When did you make that shift? How did you, when and how did you sort of shift from being this, let's call it home industries type business, into like, hang on, let's scale this thing and let's get online? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so like you said, you know, we started very small cottage industry sort of feel out of my parents' garage, you know, like any good entrepreneurial story goes. And we got to, I heard it in a podcast recently, and it really resonated with me. There's this idea of the rule of 7, 17, and 70, and it can be applied to so many things in business. And for us, I really felt that, like, at that stage of 7, where you've got 7 customers and they're pretty much your mom and your dad and your aunt and your neighbor, and you know, they'll give you a bit of feedback, but they're not going to tell you when they hated something, or maybe clearly when something didn't fit quite right. You know, they're not going to give you the most honest feedback. Then you get to sort of 17, and that's when you maybe get a bit tech savvy and you put them on WhatsApp and you get ordering. And I made a PDF, you know, menu. Then you get to the 70, where you and that's the point where we got uncomfortable and it was hard to keep track of orders. And we were like, you know, let's take this plunge. Let's build an online website. Let's, you know, this massive cost at the time and a lot of stress, but it obviously, as you know, with an e-commerce website, it just streamlines everything. So I remember that first time when we launched the website and we got our first order from a complete stranger who there was no point of connection between someone else, and you just pray that they enjoy the food, you know. Yeah.
So Kirsty, I want to bring you in here then on this. You've obviously experienced this journey firsthand, and you've obviously helped guide people and businesses through this particular process. So what are some of the sort of, you know, let's call it the steps, the practical steps and sort of pitfalls that people have in this early stage when they're kind of going through the stages that our panelists were going through? What advice have you got for those people?
You know, I think the most common mistake or misconception with e-commerce is that it's cheap and easy. And while there's no doubt that it is more affordable and simpler than opening a bricks and mortar store, I don't think you can rest on your laurels or get complacent about launching a store. I always say to my clients that it's important to approach an e-commerce store with the same kind of investment and vigor and energy and research as you would if you were opening a store in Beliso Junction. You know, it really does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. So your shop front, your website is, you kind of have maybe 3 seconds to keep people's attention. You know, if your website, one, doesn't load quickly enough, people are out of there and they might not come back. So when you begin, it's really important to go back and do that kind of marketing 101 stuff. Look at your pricing, your product, your target market, and develop a custom experience on your website that matches that. Because also with e-com, it's difficult to gain trust with the South African market. And so you maybe only have one shot to acquire a customer and then to retain them. So it really is a lot more effort than I think people perceive it to be. So it really, really is important to have all your ducks in a row and to get it right the first time.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, if I can jump in there just to agree with Kirst, and I think, like you say, with a bricks and mortar store, people will get like a designer in and an architect, and you know, and they constantly like keeping up with trends, but then their website, they won't even update for months.
So good.
And you know, people aren't going to buy food from a dirty store they walk into. Well, they're also not going to buy food from a website they come and they like, well, I've seen that like rotating photo for the last year, you know. So I think for us also, it's like sweat your asset. You know, your website is an asset. Yeah, sure. It's a lot lower risk to get into maybe than a physical store, but sweat it, make it work for you, because like I said, you've got 3 seconds to grab a potential customer.
Yeah.
Tim, if I may, sorry, Kirst.
Yeah.
We're jumping around. I'm so sorry. I just, and if you can maybe talk to it, Kirst, for a sec, but also with Kelly and them, you raised such a great point. And for the guys that have set this up, and Kirst, for those who advise, when did you realize that it wasn't a cheap or free, quick and easy thing? You know, that's really powerful. I think that's what you made me realize, like, hey, I'm on Instagram and I'm chatting, and then next minute, let's go e-com. And then you go, wow, wait, you know, I need money and there's budgets. And Kirst, you teed that up perfectly, because I think there's a misconception that it's cheap and easy. So sorry I jumped in there, but I'd love to hear from, like, where was that pivot moment in your thinking for all of you guys? Like, wow, that cost.
I think we tried that in the early days, doing this sort of cheap and easy route with a website, and we created a monster of a website that was not user friendly and it didn't generate sales. And then when we sat down and actually allocated a budget that at the time we thought, whoa, we can't afford this, but we did it, we reaped the rewards, we got the sales. And then we have approached our online store like a physical store. We allocate a budget to it, and that's a percentage of turnover that we generate online. So I think it reiterates even further, you cannot do it on the cheap. It's got to be treated properly.
I'll go back to you. I can see you itching in your office there. But I bring it back to your experience in obviously publishing and stuff. You know, it's a very similar thing. You've got a publication. You've got to grab people visually with your front cover. You know, it's got to look beautiful. And so, what is your interpretation of that? People talk about hooking. We've got to hook people in. So, I mean, you guys have got. You know, there's a huge emphasis on content and obviously your visuals, so photography and things like that. So, you know, what's your take on that from a publishing perspective and how that relates back to what the ladies are talking about?
Yeah, I think it's, so here's my view, and I've shared this a bit. When we first started out in magazines, we did stories that were 1,200 words, you know, let's say a 4-page spread, double page opening image, and then we'd go word heavy, and people consumed it. They loved it. You know, they read a lot. That was 14 years ago. Today, you know, a feature article is 600 to 800 words. You know, it's all about the image. It's and it's all about the hook. The picture pulls them. The headline then appeals to them. The subhead will get them enticed. We've moved away from long format stories to question and answer style, so that, you know, if it's 400 words and the person gets bored, question and answers, they get to sort of cherry pick as they go through it and go, oh, I like that, and that entices them to go back. So that's definitely been a change in sort of the behavior of people, visually what appeals to them and hooks them, and then getting into the content. And I think that's the same with online, you know, in my experience as well. It's the same in the online businesses we have. I can have a very wordy, product-centric, you know, website with all the tech stuff, but ultimately what sells the product is the visual. It's the weirdest thing. Like, people want to see the screenshots of it or videos of, you know, how the software works, and they want to see other people talking about it. Doesn't matter what I write. So from a design magazine point of view, the principle's the same. You know, create a strong visual appeal, let people see with their eyes, and then bring them and drive them through the story, and you eventually get it. But the hook is definitely the visual, in my opinion, guys.
Yeah, we could definitely go on, you know, certainly on that topic for a while. We've got a couple of other topics that I want to get to as well, just wary of the time. But I think the summary of that would be that you've got to find yourself a high quality photographer, or you need to be upskilling yourself as a business owner in terms of that photography. You've got to be trying to you know, use the technology that's available to take better product shots, create some sort of a studio type of environment. You know, these are very, very important. I can certainly just, you know, one sort of personal thing from our industry as far as real estate is concerned, from very, very early on, it was pretty clear to me that we had to invest a significant amount of money on our video and photography elements of our business. It seemed like it was almost common sense, but it wasn't actually that common in the sector at the time. And I'm talking about sort of 9-10 years ago. You know, now telling that story, having beautiful visuals, beautiful video, you know, and really kind of enhancing that experience for someone is critical to allow them to then take the next step. So guys, that's an awesome thing I think to keep aware of. I want to move on to something. We've got a great question, by the way, and it deals with logistics and that. So I'm happy to go there now. I want to then talk about a couple of things just now. So while it's been asked, thanks Hayden Keaton. Hayes has asked the question, and he's asked specifically around Ballito in this area in terms of the logistics, delivery, that kind of thing. So I want to go to let's maybe start with Kelly on this. Your experience, logistics. Now you've got the website. It looks great. Someone wants the product, and now they want to buy. What has your experience been in terms of logistics, and particularly around being in Ballito and having to get your product out in Ballito and surround?
How do I get my product to the people?
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty simple. You connect with a courier. So I use a courier guy, and they've basically they give you a cost to the different areas, but I've decided to use a flat rate, so it's easy for people to purchase. And and what I do is once I get the order through, I email the details through to the courier guy. I package up the parcel. They come and collect, and then they take it to the customer. They call the customer either when they're on their way, or they generally contact the customer before they get there. So it's pretty simple.
Okay, and for Amy and Jane, slightly different challenges, because you're obviously in the perishable or food business, and although you sell frozen food, what are some of your logistical challenges? I can imagine this must have been something that has consumed your every waking hour over the last period of time.
Certainly in South Africa, courier of any cold, refrigerated or frozen item is anything but simple. We are 5 steps behind any of the other first world countries. So we've really had to customize our delivery parameters and courier options in the region that we're in. So Cape Town, for example, they're probably the front runners, where we have been able to partner with a courier company that is able to deliver frozen meals within 3 hours. That doesn't happen in Durban or KZN. So we're doing deliveries ourselves. We've had to, on our website, customize that, which has probably been one of the biggest expenses for us, where we've had to tailor make that to integrate with our stock control system. So it has been quite a big task from that perspective. And I think the big thing for us is it's actually, we adapt as we go. So as we see the demand is increasing, we can change it, and we really just work with the area that we have. So for example, the courier company that we use in KZN isn't delivering to outer KZN during this restrictive period. We've had to unfortunately turn off those deliveries because you can't rely on other companies to deliver frozen. So there is still a long way to go in that regard.
So Kirsty, your experience on this, you also actually, you had some people won't know this, but you actually had a meat business, an online meat business. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. I had an online meat business that ran Gauteng, and
Okay.
I think so there's kind of 3 routes to market when delivering your product, and like, just so people know this, you can either own your delivery and logistics, which is what we did with Weare and Joburg. We had our own factory, our own warehouse, our own delivery vehicles and drivers. You can use a courier, so like a third party person, or you can kind of drop ship or partner. So if you look at what Bottle's app has done, I don't know if anyone uses Bottles, they partner with Uber to deliver the product to customers. So there's various ways you can go about it. We had, so like I said, we had our own warehousing and logistics. And the challenge comes in with the fact that South Africa is just really big. Like geographically, we have a very vast country. So you have your city centers, but then there's a lot of outlying areas. And, with Weare, for example, it was so challenging when we had orders from townships because there's no address. It's okay, it's down this road, and then that down road, and then it's the house after the second tap on the left. So there's multiple issues that come in there, and huge costs. If you are going into outlying areas, it becomes very, very expensive. There's another option, which I also remembered, is to actually just outsource your warehousing completely with a company like Parcel Ninja, for example. where they'll actually hold your product and deliver everything for you. So there are multiple options, and there's no one size fits all strategy here. It's kind of just whatever suits your business best.
And I see what Hayden Keaton's just brought up, and it's so interesting. It's something we've discussed before. Like he says, Meat Matters and Durban are using students with branded cool boxes to deliver. And I think like South Africa is such a colorful, creative country, and you've got to sort of get creative with your logistics options. Hey.
Yeah, guys. I mean, I think that Kirsty, you sort of summed it up. There's not a one size fits all, but I think that it's exactly like having this type of discussion with other people in similar industries, you know, or even other sectors that have got some creative ways to do it. I mean, there's a solution for everything. Sometimes there's a cost implication. Sometimes it won't work in different regions, but you got to ask the questions, and you've obviously then got to factor that into your actual product, because it's going to impact on your ultimately, you know, your bottom line and the profitability. And sometimes, like in anything in business, you've got to decide what not to do or where not to deliver, or you know, and you can't please everyone, certainly when you're starting out your business, but it's a very important one. I want to move on to another question that we had posed, which spoke about sort of the payment gateway. So thanks. I think that was from Sean. Yeah, from Sean. But I want to start this by sort of putting it into a particular theme, and it was touched on earlier. Kirsty touched on it. Trust. Online and trust. Trust is a huge factor in e-commerce and this whole sector. And it's broken down probably into two areas. The one is the trust in the actual product, trust that you're going to get the product, you know, that it's going to be a decent quality, etc., which I want to talk to. And then the second element of it is trust in terms of the payment methods and those things. So let's just first start with, I suppose the not the easier, but the kind of more straightforward, which is around the payment methods and gateways. Kirsty, I just want to go back to you on this one, and then I want to get some practical input from the other panelists. In terms of payment gateways, if I'm an e-commerce, I'm thinking about getting into the space, I've got no idea where to start. What's your advice?
So there are multiple payment gateways that you can use. I think the one that people will know best is PayFast. That's generally the one that we'll use across all of our clients and my businesses. What you just need to be aware of there is there are costs involved. So again, I'm coming back to the fact that e-commerce isn't free. So PayFast charges between 2 and 3.5% plus R2 of every sale, depending on the method that's used. So if you use a credit card, debit card, or EFT, it's 2 to 3.5% of that sale that the business is charged. Then when you have to withdraw money, because you have to withdraw money from PayFast, that's R8.70 per withdrawal. And you can decide whenever you want to do that. You know, it can be every day, it can be once a month, it's whenever you need the cash flow. But these payment gateways are kind of the middleman between the business and the banks, because unfortunately we're unable to deal directly with banks for now.
Okay. And I mean, so that's obviously one payment method. Some of the other ones, I mean, obviously you've got EFT, you've got things like Zapper, which you can now have sort of scanned QR codes, things like that. Maybe I'll go to Kelly on this. Practically speaking, Kelly, what has been your journey and understanding of this whole payment, the whole payment issue?
Oh, well, on my website, I've got 3 different payment methods, either EFT, Zapper, or PayFast. And I find obviously people are still a bit skeptical of online. So you do have customers that will still contact you and say, you know, make sure that you are a real person and they are going to get something when they purchase online. Yeah, so yeah, some people actually go online and then contact me and say, can I EFT you and can you send me an invoice? So I think that trust, sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that trust has to be built. And I think especially with a small business, it's so nice for people because they can have that direct contact with you. And I think if you literally walk them through the process, I've got your order, I'm packaging it, this is your tracking number, go onto this website, you can see when it will arrive. Yeah, so I think it's still until you build that trust, or once you build that trust, that customer will keep coming back. Yeah, I don't know if
yeah, absolutely. Okay, I mean, I think sometimes there's no sort of immediate solution. As you say, it's a process, it's of building trust, and I think that's going to come from your presence, your online presence, social media, people talking about you or writing about you in the news. Like over time, you do build that element. Amy and Jane, when you were selling food for your family, you were probably happy to take IOUs and I'll pay you at Christmas.
Trade exchange.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
as you shifted your business, what was your journey like from a payment perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, we would take anything, trade exchange, cash, the whole story. And I think one thing we realized with our online and bricks and mortar stores, cash is incredibly hard to manage. It's also become unsafe. So we went cashless in our physical stores about 2 years ago, which really did upset our landlords a little bit and rock the apple cart. But we were pretty persistent about that. And it's been an absolute pleasure to manage the business since then. Online, we used to allow EFT, but we've actually discontinued that as well, because as your volume of orders increase, you've got to reconcile EFT payments. So it still involves follow-up. So for us, we cannot hesitate in recommending PayFast and Zapper. They are absolutely brilliant. And then just another thing that's worked really well in the current climate, when you've got people that are a little bit nervous, the elderly people that are a bit scared about buying online, what's worked really well for us is their kids or their neighbors or whatever have helped by buying gift cards for them, digital gift cards. And those are super easy to redeem. Or if a parent has got a varsity student, they don't want to give them, money
access to their credit card.
They're buying them online gift cards that they can redeem at any time. And the sales of online gift cards have really increased a lot over this time. So
and I think just like a user tip, and it might be really blonde, but I mean, if we got stuck, maybe someone else out there will enjoy it. But Kirsty touched on the fact that you obviously pay fees whenever you withdraw the money. We got about 3 months into our new website with PayFast as our payment portal, and we were like, oh, where's the cash? The cash was so bad. And we did our bookkeeper, and she was like looking around, and we had this massive amount stuck in PayFast. Well, obviously the next day was great, but
we didn't know you had to release the funds.
Release funds.
Well, I mean, yes, just
So yeah, just if you don't mind, I think what's great is PayFast is good, and I think what people need to realize is things like Zapper and EFT are good, but they're not scalable. So if you do, when you start out, they're cool because I think it was like Amy was saying, you can reconcile easily. I get a Zapper notification to my phone, and I WhatsApp the client, and really e-commerce is more an ordering process. But as you want to scale, what you want is your payment gateway to be really integrated. So like the order must then, the payment must reconcile against the order. So when you log into the back end, it's going, hey, this thing has been ordered, it's been paid for, I can ship it. And that's, I think, the difference is as you scale up, you need an integrated payment gateway. Yeah. So overseas, we use Stripe and PayPal. Those aren't available here. In South Africa, we use PayFast as well. And for us, it was the decision to say, we don't want to handle cash, but 2, I don't want to track cash. I don't want to have to log into a bank account to be able to see that someone paid. And so, as much as trust is required from you as the business, you require trust from the customer to make the payment. And EFTs and stuff have a certain risk. So that was the one thought. And then I think the other thing, Jane, that you raised well, and I figured this as well, so it's a bit of a share, but when we signed up for PayFast, it was yonks ago. This was like before they were really, really good. And it was the same thing. I got money, they would allow you to process, but they wouldn't let you take the money out until you did the FICA related stuff. And people forget that. So payment gateways, they'll say, cool, come and set up, but you can't be dodgy.
Justin, you also bringing up the concept of trusting a customer. I mean, the amount of times that we got fraudulent proof of payments was ridiculous. But these guys were doff there that made very large orders that just weren't paid for. So my advice to businesses is to have as many payment options on your site as possible, but just you have to be so vigilant because those proof of payments are flawless.
Guys, so thanks. I think I want to just quickly hop to that second element of this trust thing. So obviously payment gateways being one, and we touched a little bit on logistics and stuff, but this, trusting in the product, and it kind of brings us and links maybe to this idea of the balance between maybe some sort of a physical presence or a physical experience for someone. So where does someone experience your product? Is that possible? And how do you go about merging the two? Once you've got a trust in the product, then going online becomes a much easier process. So, I just, Kelly, let's go back to you. I mean, you've never had a physical store of your own. You've always partnered with one or two other outlets. And so tell us a little bit about how you've kind of married the two, the online store versus people actually being able to try out. What have you done?
I think it's important to have both, because people do, well, not everybody, but there are people that want to go and touch and feel and try on. And every brand has, sizing isn't the same. So I would have someone go into store to check. Sometimes they're a small, sometimes they're a medium. And they could go into store, try it on, purchase from the store if they want to do that, or they might purchase once or twice from store, and then once they know the quality is good, then they'll start shopping online. I think the bonus about being online is that you're open 24/7, so people can shop at any time. I know that being a mom, it's sometimes tricky to walk through a shop with your kids pulling at your dress, and you're trying to grab an outfit for an occasion that you're going to. So I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. I think another positive about online is that you can turn things around quickly. If you want to do a sale or you want to mention something, you can literally go online and do it straight away. As you know, if you're in store, it's probably slightly differently because you've got to move around your whole store, move things around, pack things away. So I think for me, there's pros and cons to both. Yeah. And it's actually been so awesome to work with stores because, I find I'll communicate with customers and then I'll say to the store owner, listen, I don't have stock of this online. I've asked the customer to go to store, and then, it's great to have the link between the two.
So this is an exciting one because, I think a lot of people, it's a weird dichotomy because 53% of South African shoppers are shopping for clothing and apparel. It's the biggest sector. But at the same time, you'll have people who are hesitant because they can't touch and feel. Mm-hmm. But with the advent now of like augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, we'll be able to kind of let go of that fear and that trust. So now you can upload a photo of yourself and see what a pair of sunglasses will look on your face. You can take a photo of your living room and superimpose a couch into your space to see exactly what it's going to look like. So there's all of this technology that's now coming into play that will kind of take away that fear, that apprehension of buying online.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, Kelly, go for it.
Oh, sorry, man. I was just going to say, I think one thing I've learned about being online is you have to have good images. You have to, even when photographers take photos, you've got to make sure they don't edit it to the point where the color isn't the same. You need to have close-up shots so the person can literally see the texture of the fabric, how it flows. If you're able to put a little video of somebody in the dress twirling around so people can sort of see how it fits and moves.
The technology that's out there is quite incredible, I mean we've been influenced by it too, even in the real estate space, because you've got these new technology platforms, things like Matterport, which will literally go and scan an entire footprint of a house, give you a floor plan, and it'll create like a dollhouse, 360-degree dollhouse view, so you can with real actual images that you can go then and walk in and experience a house. So this technology is influencing many different platforms around. We've got a question here which is from Rob Gold. he's talking about, again, brick and mortar, and he's saying we're interested in the panel thoughts on the current brick and mortar businesses that aren't in e-commerce. So they haven't actually set up e-commerce. And the gist of it is that they're sort of scrambling around and looking for channels to market. And he's asking in particular what our thoughts are as far as using existing platforms like Takealot or, you know, any other platforms. He said Macro and Loot and things like that. So, Kirsty, you know, in terms of just the other platforms, so if I don't have an online presence or any kind of e-commerce footprint at the moment, what would your advice be to those people to, what's the first step to get their product to market?
What if you don't want to have an online store?
Well, is that even a good idea? You know, I mean, is it worth going through these additional channels as a stopgap, or is it worth just getting on the...
Absolutely. Honestly, my advice is use every touch point possible. So with the, I had a home decor store, and we you know, custom made home decor pieces, and we listed them on Takealot. And it was just another point of contact. What it also did was it made us more credible. It made us more trustworthy because everyone knows Takealot. So because we were listed there, people were like, hey, you guys are a real business. Mm-hmm. There are also costs involved with Takealot, though. Not to list, you can list, but if you want to like get it onto the front page or market it in their newsletter, that's just some budget you'll have to set aside for them. Takealot's merely a fulfillment center, so you can go ahead and list on them if you want. Same with like Superbalist and those big guys. You're welcome to list your products on there if you don't want to have your own store or want to add to your store.
Yes, just but on that, so I mean, Superbalist has got clothing, and obviously it's got some home decor items and things like that. Takealot pretty much everything. How do you actually go about doing it? You know, because obviously surely the images have to be a certain, you know, way.
Yeah.
That, you know, yeah. Are there not any cost implications to list on some of these platforms?
Last I checked, no, it might have changed. But they're very good. They provide you with a very detailed Excel spreadsheet. That's you have to put in a lot more information than you knew you needed. But you fill out that spreadsheet, submit it to them. They give you all of the specs that they need your images to be. And then their reporting and fulfillment backend is great as well. You can see you're notified very quickly when something is sold, and then it's up to you to sell. Takealot doesn't take care of delivery for you. It's still on you. But they're very, very good that way with kind of the reporting and the back end of it, so you don't miss anything.
Okay, and then finally to finish up that particular conversation, bricks and mortar, you know, and this balance. You know, I can weigh in a little bit here. I've been obviously being in that sort of that space. We've been having a load of conversations at the moment with landlords, with small businesses and other, you know, tenants, and it's been very interesting to see kind of how people have reacted to this, because the initial knee-jerk reaction is to say, I need to cut costs. I need to just eliminate this from my, you know, my overhead, and I need to just go online and everything. And obviously it's not exactly the best time to be making those types of decisions. But I think that what has been quite interesting is that there's been a sense that maybe we should start talking with other like-minded people, or people that have got supplementary or complementary businesses. So something like where We Are Fooders, where you're at the market at Lifestyle, for example, where perhaps you've got a couple of like-minded individuals that they've got similar kinds of offerings, or there's a similar kind of ethos around what they're about. You know, those sorts of things, and curating spaces where people can actually share, you know, minimize the overhead and share in the cost to get that additional foot traffic. You know, so these are some of the trends certainly that we are seeing out there. And one of the other things that is certainly, it was happening way before COVID was big shopping centers. You know, what with the pressure on big shopping centers, and why is a big shopping center what is it gonna be about? Interestingly, before this period, there was a huge shift in shopping centers towards being entertainment centers, not retail centers. And so that's why you'll find that those sort of central court areas and your sort of, you know, entertainment, and that's why you'll have cinemas or bingo or nightclubs or gyms, certainly big food court restaurant areas. So that would kids areas, kids zones. There's a huge shift globally towards experiential spaces, not retail spaces. And the retail spaces were really more to like go and just feel the brand, just go and check it out, go and walk into the Nike store and just go and check it out. What's the brand all about? You know, maybe try on something, maybe check out you know, physically what's there. But the one big trend was actually also about returns. A lot of these big retailers are sort of like, well, I need a physical space because I need to go and speak to someone. I want to just go and speak to someone, maybe drop something off and have it returned. So I think what's going to happen going forward is that there's going to be a rethink of what a physical space is going to be. I don't think it just disappears. It's not going to just disappear altogether for most businesses. But now, how do I use it smartly? So yeah, I mean, any final thoughts on kind of the balance between the two from the panel?
Yeah, I think we can definitely weigh in on that. Having had experience in both, without a doubt, you need to spread the net wide. So I don't believe that e-commerce can act independently. Whether you've got a presence in a retailer that you're aligned with or your own store, it is still vital, particularly in apparel and I think food as well. What we've realized though with our physical stores, and you mentioned the Bottcher Lifestyle Center, they've done it remarkably well because they're building up that sense of community. You can have a smaller space that's a little bit more tight-knit. We don't have a massive overhead where it's a 150 square meter store. And I think that's what the important thing is now. You've got to maintain those overheads and your store then acts as like a showcase. So that's what we've realized. We've done standalone stores, we've done bigger spaces. It's not necessary in this time and place. And that's where, if you can't find the space that's suitable, collaborate with other like-minded brands, but you do still need that, you need that to be able to create that brand awareness.
And I think for us as, you know, business owners, we made the decision a few months ago to look at that line item of rental within a certain center or space and don't, I don't know, I think the days of the accounting where that was a specific percentage of sales, we look at it overall in our business and we almost lump it in with our marketing budget.
Yeah.
So we see our rental as a marketing budget. We have to sweat it, we have to work it. If we, you know, we lose touch of it a little bit, we say, okay, we need to get in there. What are we doing? Showcasing, we're doing tasters, we're looking at getting a nutritionist in to do talks. I mean, this was all obviously pre-corona, so we can't do that right now. But, you know, that's the idea is you can't just have a stagnant store and just like in e-commerce as well. What more are you offering people? And like you say, people are walking around the malls. Very few are walking around with shopping bags, but they want to come in and experience, trust you, fall in love with your brand, go home and shop in the middle of the night when they're bored.
Well, that's pretty much sums up that. I think some great ideas there. And it takes us back to, you know, this collaboration. It's really, really important. The challenge is going to be for a lot of landlords out there at the moment to take up that challenge. And it's very difficult because, you know, I read a really interesting, or I saw an interesting video with the guy, John Sana, who he's a futurist and fantastic guy, someone really worth listening to, in my opinion. And he likened the current situation to a building. He said, on one hand, you've got one section of the house that's burning and the other section of the house that you're renovating. And you have to decide which one you're going to focus on. Are you going to go and try and put out the fires in what's burning currently, or are you going to go and finish up the renovation and what you've started? And it's a very important one. We can't go back to the way that it was. We have to rethink stuff. It's not always up to us. And in this particular instance, it's going to be up to landlords. Some of them are very, very large. Some of them are very large funds, property funds and stuff. They're not as nimble as you'd like to think. And then there's some of them that are a bit smaller that maybe have the ability to engage with their tenants and find these solutions. So we'll see. Watch the space. Guys, we definitely at the back end of the session, and what we traditionally do is we go around the panel and we just ask everyone to give their sort of final take and thoughts on any final things that they feel like they've missed out or would like to share. Now's your chance. So I want to start, let's start with Kelly. Kelly, any final thoughts? How's it been? And yeah, anything that you'd like to add to finish off?
Well, I think that if you're thinking of going online, I think it's definitely an option. Yeah, I think now more than ever is a time to be online, to put the effort in. And I think a big thing for me is support local, support those small businesses. I found that during this whole Corona thing, you know, brands were so cagey about their resources, and now for the first time people are sharing and realizing there's enough business for everybody. So yeah, I think for me, just stand behind the small brands and help them to grow, support them.
Awesome. That's a great message. And that's certainly something that we're trying to achieve here at Love Local. So people often ask, well, what can I do? You know, I'm just a individual consumer, but you have all the power. You have all the power to make choices about where you shop, who you support. So fantastic. Amy and Jane, final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what we always keep coming back to is like the world is so different. We're in the time of a crisis. I hope the world's going to look a little different coming out of this. Like Lily said, with supporting local, vote with your wallet, vote with your fork. You've got the power. And I think most importantly, as business owners, whether you've got a massive team behind you or you outsource, you need to act like a leader. And I think it's a time for radical thought. It's a time for radical action. You know, be honest with your staff, be honest with your consumer, you know, because that's what's going to bring the change going forward with consumerism and with our economy.
Awesome. Amy, have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, to add to that, I think just with regards to your e-commerce platform and any physical presence that you have, they cannot be treated independently. They've got to work together, they've got to gel, they've got to speak to each other. And it's absolutely important that you treat both of them with that respect, allocate the relevant budget, so that people get the same message from both of those platforms.
Great. Kirsty, let's go to you. What sage words of advice, practical advice, and have you got to finish off the session for us?
Okay, I'm going to have a few things very quickly. The first thing is, don't think that e-commerce is some kind of magic potion and that you will build it and they will come. You have to consistently reinvest, consistently market, consistently be on top of your customers. Having said that, I'm going to give some very boring advice now. If you open an e-commerce store, you have to get used to loving data. You have to get used to being able to see, okay, how much traffic is my website getting? Where is it coming from? Why is it coming from there? What happened? What marketing did I put in place to drive the feet to the store? And really, really dig deep into that. And there's plenty of free tools that you can use to do so. Google Analytics, your Facebook ad manager, Hotjar lets you see what the hotspots on your website are. Get really used to figuring out what your customer journey is and why they're dropping off your website. And then finally, on that note, I think it's between 70 and 80% of your customers will drop off if you charge a delivery fee. And I know this is a very contentious discussion. And again, it's not a one size fits all thing, but you really need to, if you can, work your delivery fee into the cost of your product. Alternatively, just provide free delivery on spend of X amount or more. There.
Cool. Good. Very good practical advice, Kirsty. It's all very well and good getting all sort of worrying about the flowery and the marketing, everything, but is it working? Is it actually bringing, foot traffic through? It's very important. Just, you've been...
I've been quiet.
You've been quiet. You've been held back. So, what words of advice or thoughts have you had from this discussion?
So look, I mean, it's weird because I have these two hats of magazine and what we love and telling stories, and then there's the world of tech, which I think people don't know. So here's my takeaway, and great, by the way, to the panel, well done. I mean, just even someone who's been playing in the space, great advice. So the world of online and e-commerce, broadly, like any business, is about acquisition and retention. Kirsty's 100% right. On the acquisition side, what's feeding your funnel? Be careful where you run. Don't run where everyone else is. You've got blue ocean strategy. So, Facebook. Okay, cool. Well, guess what? There's 1,000 people standing in a square screaming, selling their products. If you go to Facebook, you're doing the same thing. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying on the acquisition side, stay local. Like, your local customers support you. So if you got that product, they'll love you. You don't have to stand somewhere else screaming at the rest of the world. And once you've worked through the funnel and you've acquired someone and you've figured out your abandoned cart rates and why people are dropping off and what are you doing wrong and your photos are wrong, and once you've got them, love them and hold them. Retention's critical. So don't just grab the money and run for the hills and go, I got you buggers. Those customers are key. So drive the long tail. They'll stick with you a long time. If you're selling food, if the food is great, we'll be with you forever. That type of stuff. So it's acquisition and retention. The business models are the same, whether it's brick and mortar or e-commerce. The fundamentals of business are the same. The great thing, Kirsty, you're right. There's so much data in the e-commerce space. I can tell when people are arriving and what they're doing, what they like and what they don't like. So that's my view. Like, don't see it differently. Just understand it's pretty much the same old, and use advice from the panel and people like Kirsty to guide you. Don't do it on the cheap, and don't, fall into holes when other people can tell you not to. I think we're too cheap in South Africa. Pay for good sage advice.
Yeah. And also, just sorry, last thing. It's again, I'll say it, there is no one size fits all, and you have to constantly try. With other industries, I mean, the e-commerce industry in South Africa is only 26 years old. It's like 24 years old. So it's still relatively new, and we only kind of saw massive growth in 2016, 17. So always just test. Like, there's plenty of ways to do A/B testing on your marketing channels like Google and Facebook. Just try stuff out and just see what works. It is more affordable. It's not cheap, it is more affordable. But if you have a little bit extra cash to throw into an ad campaign, change the wording, change the imagery, change the messaging a bit, just try it all out. And it takes a long time, but eventually you find that sweet spot.
Cool. Yeah, guys. Well, I've only got one sort of last thing to add, and it was something again that I've picked up recently from John Sana, and it's pretty simple message. Basically, he was looking at what a customer wants. What does a customer want? And he's got 3 things there. I'm going to read it because he's much cleverer than I am. But it really resonates with me. And that's, firstly, they want more personalization. People, they want to feel like you know them. They want to know, that you understand what they're about. And that talks to a lot of what the panel has discussed today. Get to know your customer. They want to get to know you. That's the first thing. The second thing is more convenience. We're in the age of convenience, and that's exactly what e-commerce is supposed to be. If it's not more convenient, then don't do it. But if it isn't convenient enough, then you need to really look at those channels. So that's going to impact on the convenience of your online platform, the convenience of your delivery, the convenience of your return policies. People want convenience. If they didn't, they would be going and shopping at a store, if that was a physical store, if that was more convenient. And the final thing is, he says, which is a common theme, more trust. They want more trust. And it's 2 ways. You want trust in your customer, your consumer, that they're going to pay you, that they're going to hold up their end of the bargain. And it's exactly the same the other way around. So yeah, more personalization, more convenience, more trust. Pretty much, I think, sums up a lot of what we've been discussing today on the panel. Thank you so much, guys, for giving up your time and for participating. We'll obviously record the session. We'd like to share it far and wide. Good luck with this, the final stages of the lockdown. Hopefully we'll be kind of emerging as soon as possible. And we look to see you on the flip side. So Sage in the background, we're going to log off in a couple of seconds. So thanks to everyone.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.